Hello and welcome to the very first guest episode of TubbTalk Wired for Connection, the podcast where we explore the human side of IT and MSP industry. I'm Lenka, I'm the operations manager at TubbTalk, and I'm so thrilled to be your co-host for this exciting new spin-off of TubbTalk, the podcast for managed service providers. So this show is designed for managed service providers who care about people as much as they care about the technology. So obviously, usually in TubbTalk, you will hear Richard Tubb, but this series is taking a bold new direction, one that's women-led, people first, and all about amplifying the underrepresented voices in our industry. And I'm joined by my brilliant co-host, the inspiring Vera Tucci, the co-owner and COO at a fast-growing Italian MSP T Consulting. Vera is a global MSP leader and most importantly, passionate advocate for inclusion in tech. Hi, Vera. It's so good to have you here again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lenka. And hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be on this journey with you. As you said, I'm Vera Tucci. I'm an MSP, and I have been for the last 18 years. And this podcast means the world to me. For me, Wired for Connection is more than just a title. It's a movement. It's about building a tech industry where everyone belongs, where leadership comes from different forms, and where stories, especially the ones that often go unheard, are front and center. And today we are starting with a bang. We are thrilled to welcome an incredible guest whose story embodies everything that this show stands for.
Yes, absolutely. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to our today's guest. It's Amanda Stewart, the Managing Director and CTO of Illuminate, an Edinburgh-based MSP with a big heart and even bigger mission. So Amanda launched her business 16 years ago when her daughter was just 6 months old, seeking flexibility that her employer simply could not offer. From a lifestyle business to a very respected MSP serving businesses and charities, Amanda's journey is a story of resilient vision and impact.
Amanda is also a trailblazer in encouraging young women into tech. And recently, she became chair of the Advancing Women in IT group of GTIA. Amanda, welcome to Wired for Connection. We are so honored to have you as our very first guest.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here.
So, as you know, we are interested in the stories behind the professionals in the MSP industry. So instead of reading the incredible achievements of your career, would you like to introduce yourself and have our listeners understand better who's the person behind this biography and this title?
Sure. So my kind of story in IT began when I was very young. I kind of started as a secretary, and that was a kind of career goal that you got as a young woman in those days. It was that or nursing, and I started working for an organisation as a secretary, and became very bored very quickly. Although I loved the organisation, I loved the people, there was just something missing. And then one day, the accounting department, as it was in those days, because IT and accounting were the same sort of industry at that time, they brought in 2 IBM computers and put them down in a corner of a room. And being 19 and bored, I set them up and worked out how to use them, and ended up teaching the really ancient 40-year-olds in the typing pool how to work WordPerfect and the first IBM computers. So it kind of started from there. And then I went on to work for an organisation where there was a male IT manager in a company who taught me all about how not to do customer service. He was very much one of these people who would walk into a room, what have you done wrong? Rather than trying to work with the clients to find out what the issue was. So it kind of started from there, and then a good few roles on from there, sort of working as manager for IT companies, I decided that I wanted to start up on my own, and that was when I started Illuminate. I had been working for an organisation that wouldn't do flexible working, and I had gone through IVF to have my first child. And the thought of not being able to see her every day and do the long commute that I would need to do, I decided it wasn't for me. So started Illuminate so that I could have that time with her. And that was where it was born, really.
Well, it's great that you just jumped into this industry just by trying and do something new that maybe other people around you were not familiar with. And it's something that I think we all agree we should teach younger girls as a skill. Jump into things even if you're not completely confident with something. When you started and you tried, and work your way around IBM machines, do you think there was a moment when you realized that was your path? That was something that you could actually be good at?
If I'm honest, I didn't think so at the time, because to me it was just a means to get the job done quicker. And being a young female people pleaser in those days, it was all about trying to get the job done better and quicker for the bosses, really. And it probably wasn't until I moved on to my second job, where I was again as a secretary, but in the IT department, where I shadowed the IT manager around, that I realised maybe not that this was the right course for me, but that I could do it better than he was doing it in the whole sort of customer focused type way. He was very good technically, and I learned a lot from him technically, but I think he also probably learned quite a lot from me in how to treat people. And it was very obvious quite quickly that they would then start to ask me for me rather than him, even though I was still learning, because it was easier to deal with me than it was to deal with him.
Well, I think it's something that it still happens to these days, where there's a young professional in the room, and for the more experienced male manager, it's hard to admit that maybe somebody new up and coming has the answers. But I think that it wasn't easy for you as well to have this role and to embody the new female professional that could answer instead of the manager. Can you share with us maybe a fun episode or a moment where things got a little bit complicated to manage with the people around you or with your manager? Something that, if you look at it now retrospectively, it's fun and we can all laugh about it, but maybe it wasn't so fun when it happened.
Yeah, I think there's been a good few over the years. I think being a female in a male-dominated industry, you always get the kind of stuff. I remember once getting one company they were working for, we had this massive server room with IBM equipment everywhere, and they were putting in a kill switch. So basically, a switch that we could go in and just basically hit the big red button and everything would go off. But there was a reset function that was quite fiddly to work, and the guy coming in to show us how to work it and how to reset it said, well, girls, because we had an all-female IT department at that time. There were 6 of us, and he said, well, I think you should maybe get a guy in to do this for you, because I don't really want any of you to break your nails.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's been a few of those over the years, but that to me was probably one of the funniest.
Well, was it fun when it happened? How did you perceive such a statement?
I think probably then I would have been a little bit outraged, and how misogynistic. But over the years, I think, and it's actually really quite sad, but it's become kind of part, and you probably have the same experiences, but it's become part of our journey, really. And you kind of get used to it. And I think part of my passion is to try and make that a different experience for the young girls that are coming up. Having that 6-person female IT department back in the 90s was incredible, and would love to see that again. But we just don't have enough of us. That's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that made the network news recently. It has been posted on LinkedIn. This new chapter of the GTIA, more massive organization, is focused on advancing women in the tech space. So from my perspective, until 1 or 2 years ago, it was still about telling girls and women that the technology space was there and they could approach that as a career path. And now we're talking about advancing them in the industry. Do you see that a change in a positive direction when it comes to the female presence in the tech space?
Yes and no. I still think we're still having to tell girls, particularly over here in the UK, that it is an area that they can get into. I don't think they have enough sort of female role models to show them what a job in the IT sector could look like. And you can't be what you can't see. So I think it's really important that we get people into schools where you can, tell girls the sort of opportunities that are available to them. Yes, they can be technical, but yes, there are also lots of jobs within the tech space that don't necessarily have to be technical. So I think that's still needing to be done. But again, once you get women in through the door, you have to be an organisation that is putting people first. I think it's really telling, and I think it's a brilliant thing that the younger generation are going to work for businesses that care about people and care about the environment and all the sort of things that this sort of B Corp movement is enforcing. That's the kind of places that young people want to work. And I think that particularly is for women as well. I think women feel much more comfortable in an organisation where that is at the heart of the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way that you put it. You can be what you can't see. And this is the core of representation in the workforce, in every industry, but specifically in one like the one where we work, that is not just male dominated, but has been historically male dominated. And maybe sometimes it's even intimidating for people that are not part of this industry yet, when they see that there's a boys club.
It's very intimidating. You probably experienced it too, but I started where I would be 1 or 2 women within a group of 300 men. And when you're young, that is really intimidating. As you get older, you kind of get less bothered, I think. And you just go, right, you know what, I'm just going to get on with this. And that's fine. But I think it is really difficult. And also, my passion about getting young women role models, because that is so intimidating, they don't tend to step up as much. And it's up to probably the older women to kind of try and push that forward and try and get younger women to step up as role models, because it's not everybody's comfort place, to be fair.
Absolutely. And being that role model, I think it's something that we can do more naturally if we have an idea of what kind of mentor and what kind of model we would have needed when we were younger. Before you mentioned a manager that taught you how not to be a manager, but did you have back then an example that you could follow? Did you see yourself into someone else that gave you the inspiration for the future leader that you would have become?
I think I've worked with different managers through the years and taken aspects of all of them, both male and female, to be fair. I've had some amazing male managers in the past. So I suspect for me it wasn't so much about whether they were male or female, it was about the attributes that they came with. And I think those that were caring and actually wanted to help move their staff onwards, not necessarily keep them within the same organisation or keep them within the same role, but really take an interest in who they are and where they wanted to be. That was kind of what I wanted Illuminate to be like, and really have a culture where everybody's voice is heard and everybody is part of the organisation. They're not just a cog in a bigger machine.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you can take your experience and put it into something that you're building, I think the result will be something that combines all the good experiences and the not so good experiences in a perfect mix of everything that you've been through, and you can actually learn from even other people's shortcomings and mistakes, and try to avoid that when you create your company and you work on the culture of your company. In the path that brought you here in this role, in this company with your MSP, and the great positions that you have in the global community and in the peer groups, do you remember a moment that was the top for you when you were living it, like the high five moment, and maybe another one that was maybe quite difficult, something that now you consider a lesson learned, something that you would share with younger women that are approaching this industry as a lesson that maybe can teach them how to overcome a difficulty or a bad moment in their career?
Yeah, I think, well, to go to the positive first, I think the most positive one for me was Estelle from GTIA has always been very supportive of me and the business, and I think for her, she was very keen to get me up talking on stage. And I was spectacularly not interested in doing that. It wasn't my happy place. I didn't feel I had anything to give. And she really pushed me to do it and said, look, I really think people would like to hear. So I did a talk about advancing women in tech and how important it was. Hated every minute of being on stage. I came off and had so many people coming up and saying it was inspiring and how much they'd enjoyed it. So that for me was probably the highlight. There's been lots of highlights, but that was a particular one that sticks in my mind, and I'll always be really grateful to her for that opportunity. The low point, I think, was I'm part of another peer group, which is all male, apart from the amazing facilitator and myself. But I think it was a time where I didn't realize something was going particularly wrong in my business, but they spotted it and pointed it out to me. And that was a very big problem that I then had to spend over a year fixing. And that gave me so many lessons about how to run a business. I think having run a business for 18 years, you think you know how to do it, but you make lots of mistakes. Everybody does. And you pick yourself up and you get on with it. But I think the most important thing is for somebody to realize something that you didn't know was a problem, and pick it out and tell you how to turn that around. And that was a massive blow. It was a real kind of, goodness, this is not good. But the important thing is that you take the advice and you run with it, which is what I did. And it's now no longer a problem. And we've moved on from there now. So
yeah, this is the power of getting in the room with other people and share the story behind the business, so that a fresh set of eyes can identify quicker if something is not quite right at the moment, because sometimes you get so much involved in the day-to-day things and in the project that you've been developing that I at least it happened to me a few times where you present your work to someone else and they point out those couple of things that you could do better. And that's the real power of sharing and going on stage and speaking in front of other people. I think there's something not just liberating, but it's an incredible opportunity to just present a topic to somebody that maybe hasn't heard that perspective before, or maybe they haven't seen someone that looks like them on stage speaking about that topic. So I think it's incredible that right now the women in the industry have this opportunity to just look for somebody that looks like them in the room and maybe ask for advice, ask for help, or just get connected. And this is, I think, the basic point of our podcast is to create that connection so that maybe next time we are in the same room and we can actually talk to each other about our experiences.
Yeah, and everybody's story is different as well. And I think it's really important. And everybody loves to hear people's stories. And I don't think people appreciate that. You just run a business and you think, well, I'm just running a business like everybody else. But the whole backstory to how you got there and how, the issues that you've had and the things that have worked are actually really interesting to everyone. Everybody loves a story.
Absolutely. And especially a story that is not something that was easy to foresee, because if you study a specific subject, like you decided to go to med school and you become a doctor and maybe you become the chief of that department in a hospital, your story, as great as it might be, it's not surprising. There's no effect of surprise because you've been following that path. But when we start as women in this space, we often have started from a different starter point. Maybe we have a different academic background, and we have created this space for ourselves instead of waiting for somebody to move over and create the space at the table. As Lenka and I were talking about last time, we are bringing the chair from home and we are trying to find our space in the industry. But you've been such a huge advocate for peer support and peer groups and community in a general way in the MSP industry. But when you were starting, or even today, who were the people in your corner, and who are the people in your corner right now, so that maybe somebody that doesn't have a mentor yet can understand better who a mentor can be? Because sometimes I think we tend to think that a mentor is a person that does exactly the kind of job that we want to do. But I believe that sometimes even somebody in a different position can be a good mentor if we have the right relationship.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a huge advocate for peer groups. I mean, they just give so much benefit. And sad to say that I ran my business for over 12 years without knowing they even existed, to be honest. But I think they're a lot more publicized now than they used to be. And I think, it would be my number one suggestion to any young female trying to get into this business is to join one. But other sort of people that I would turn to, my sister actually works in a very male-dominated industry as well. She works in the oil industry. So we both kind of have that really unique experience from different industries that we can draw upon. And she actually runs a peer group for the oil industry, which is quite interesting. And that, is a very unusual thing. So it's great to get her experiences. She's always been somebody that I would go and speak to, and obviously my family. But I've got a great team around me as well. So we often just bounce ideas off each other in the team. But if eventually I go back every sort of quarter and discuss with my peer group or things that have worked and things that haven't worked. And they give me my goals for the next quarter.
So that they keep you accountable for all the things that you want to achieve, and having that kind of community around you really helps a business person, like a manager, an owner, or anyone who's in a position of responsibility to have that companionship. Because I think one of the greatest danger of the people in that kind of position is that sometimes we might feel lonely and we don't have a colleague that we might go to. I recently was at the training, and the teacher told us that stress shouldn't travel south. So when you're feeling stressed or you're feeling anxious, you can never go to the people that in the organizational chart are below you, quote unquote, below you.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that friendship at your level, that support, it might be too much sometimes to absorb all the energy of this industry, because as we often say, we fix issues. So all the people that we interact with are having issues of some kind, maybe infrastructural or maybe in cybersecurity. But if we talk to a client, it's because something is not working and we have to deal with that. So how do you cope with, stress? Have you find a way for you to manage, the mental health side of things when it comes to having an MSP business?
I'll admit that I'm probably not the best at that. I do try really hard, and I think as I've got older, I've got better at it. But when I was younger, I did find it a very, very stressful thing to do, especially bringing up two young children. But it was kind of you've not really got a choice. You just have to get on with it. I'm not really giving myself a lot of time to think about what was going on round about. But the problem with that was that kind of, it meant that I wasn't really thinking about a trajectory for the business. It was just a basic, I'm just going from one day to the next. And also I was storing up an awful lot of stress that eventually just kind of came out, and through the peer group, all the things that had been for years sort of building up in me in terms of stress, but also in terms of growing the business, all came out at the same time. And I think I'm now much better at taking the time when I feel that I need that time off, taking myself away. I've started doing things like baking bread and doing artwork, that kind of thing. I'm not particularly good at any of these things, but it's just something creative that takes you away from, the thoughts of the business that are constantly crowding your head when you're running a business. And I think you're right, your point about not being able to share everything about the business with those people that you work with. And it is a very lonely place, and peer groups and those people that are also running businesses are absolutely the best people to share that with. And the people that think, why would you share all this information with your competitors, are really missing a trick, because we're all doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
And there's actually no point in reinventing the wheel. If somebody's done something great, then fantastic. Get that information from them, but also be really aware that it only really works if you're giving something back too. And you will, when I first started in peer groups, I thought, I've got nothing to give to people. What do I know about running a business? I'm here to learn from them. But you soon realize that you do. Everybody has a different way of running their business, and there's always tips and tricks that you can pass on.
Absolutely. I have so many questions, but the first one, when you were talking about the fact that other people sometimes ask us, why do you want to share all of this with competitors? I believe that the uniqueness of the MSP industry is exactly that. We don't see ourselves as competitors when we come together in one room at a vendors conference, at one of those big events throughout Europe or in the US. It's just like meeting old friends that you have something really great in common, and not meeting hundreds of competitors. I've never felt the scarcity of being with competitors. I always felt that I could learn and I could share, and I was finally in a room where people who could understand me, instead of having to explain everything that has been going on in my mind. So I think that our industry is extremely advanced for this kind of culture, and the big names that have created the communities, I think they have all they should get all the praise for building such a great place to work.
Absolutely. And I think it's just there's just so much information that you can pass back and forward, and it's just great to, as you say, see old friends. I don't think of any of them as competitors, really. We're just in a really, as you say, a really unique industry where this is quite commonplace. And I speak to so many other people in industry who don't have what we have, and I feel sorry for them, because it's like coming home to a family. The people that I've met through peer groups will be friends for life.
Yes,
we know everything about each other. We share all the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Absolutely, especially because we don't need to keep all the things separated the way that we've been maybe taught in the past 10, 15 years, where you were supposed to keep the business side of your life and the personal side of your life separated. And this is the kind of message that I think sometimes creates the wrong culture in a company, where you're supposed to leave the problems at home. We are just one whole person. So of course, work is a big part of my life. And when I can meet with a group of people that share the same interest that I have in this kind of business, it's a huge relief, and it's something that enriches you in so many ways. But before you mentioned another thing about wanting to be there as a listener at first. You thought that you didn't have something to share yet, and then you realize that everybody has something different, something new that they can bring to the table. Do you think it's a common trait for women to be to see their experiences as not enough yet, compared to the way that men approach a new room with people that they don't know?
I think so. I think it's particularly true in our industry as well. I mean, having been in the industry probably a lot longer than probably most of the people in my peer group, I still have that sort of imposter syndrome where I think I probably don't know as much about this as I should do. And if you also add in the fact that I've got menopausal brain, and there's so many acronyms in our industry. I've always struggled, and now having menopause, it's even worse. So, I actually have members of the team now that I will take with me to proposals and stuff like that, who will remind me of things that I'm supposed to be saying. So I think there's always that. There's always a little bit of imposter syndrome, but for me, add a little bit of sort of menopause brain, and it just all goes out the window sometimes.
Yeah, but let me just say that it's incredible to talk to somebody in a work conversation and having the word menopause being mentioned. Because when I started, I was the only woman in the room in a 400 group of people. And the idea that now we have not just the freedom to talk about some topics that when I was growing up were kind of taboo, but also we're growing as a group and as a presence. So these topics will become something that we will address more and more often when we talk about management style, leadership style, because we have to acknowledge the fact that we go through different phases throughout.
It's part of life.
Yeah, it is. And Lenka and I met at an event, and we were super overwhelmed by the sounds and the light and the voices. And we were talking about the fact that I think in specific times we are more subject to stress when it comes to loud noises and overstimulation than our male counterparts. So this is a tip, suggestion for the next conference.
Future.
Have a separate room for women that they just want to stay in silence for 10 minutes.
Well, there are actually organizations who are putting menopause rooms into their companies. So
That's
it's just a
so
safe
cool.
space for women to go that is calm and cool, and they can just take some time out. So yeah, there are so many brilliant things happening for women in organizations now. We just need to keep that pace up, really.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to the original questions that I had in mind, but you have such a great story that it's tempting to just pick up on a word, on a sentence, and move to another direction. But if you have to choose one thing that you really love about our industry, what would that be? We already covered the peer groups part, but is there anything else that you think it's the cherry on top of working in the MSP industry?
Well, we get to play with shiny toys all the time. There's always something new coming out. You can't. I mean, I look at other industries where they have to do courses every year to keep up to date with the latest legislation, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, that's great, but we are getting things thrown at us every single day. You know, there's something new coming out every single day. You know, I spoke to somebody last week who said, you know, you write a book on AI and within 3 weeks it'll be out of date. You know, all that kind of stuff. It's such a fast-paced industry to work in.
Yes.
It's just great. I think for me, that's what makes it exciting. No 2 days are the same. And also, we love to help people. You know, the whole thing about our industry is helping people. And I find that being able to get all that nice shiny tech and be able to take that to a client and go, look, this is what you should be doing. That's why we're in this industry, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. The fact that we have that, somebody mentioned that superpower, especially during the COVID years, we kind of changed the course of things for so many businesses. They were able to work from home in a matter of hours or days, and just our superpowers.
How many years had we been trying to sell them video conferencing and they weren't interested? And then in a week, it all happened. Yeah,
absolutely. And now with all the cyber threats rising up every single day, all the things that we've been talking about for years, now they are part of the daily conversation with our clients. On the bright side, it's like we are at the right place at the right moment, so we can finally help them the way that we wanted to help them. But it took a long time for the market to be ready for all the things that we all knew as MSPs that were coming up. But the helping part is extremely rewarding. But on the other side, if you could change one thing of the industry, what would that be?
I think it's obvious. We need to get more women.
Yes.
I think it just, I interview a lot of teenage girls about what the industry looks like to them. And it's a really depressing conversation. They don't know what's available to them. It's not taught at school in an exciting way. I don't know if you've read the book Invisible Women, but it's all about how data is completely and utterly based on white male. And there's a huge gender data bias throughout the world. And we need to be getting more women into the industry to change that. And have our voices heard and basically get rid of that gender bias.
Absolutely. I keep saying absolutely because I'm nodding with every word that you say, but it's I think it's our main responsibility is to present young women with opportunities that they are not choosing because they don't even know they exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's our job as leaders in this industry to present and promote. And somebody said we have to make MSPs sexy again, or maybe at all. It has to become one of those cool jobs that people want to do, especially when we need so much help with good content marketing. A lot of MSPs don't tap into that because they don't have people that can run the marketing departments. And all the new generation, they're so familiar with the tools and with the technology behind social media. Maybe that interest can be shared with the MSP industry, and we can all benefit from people coming from different paths of lives instead of just having that background. Because I think a lot of women believe that if they haven't attended a technological school, this world is not for them. But I think it's quite the opposite.
I think it's the absolute opposite. I mean, our last employee didn't have an IT background. He came from customer service background. And that is exactly the kind of people you want. You can teach the tech.
Yes.
You need the people with the skills, the soft skills. And, you know, I know it's a generalization, but women are better at that kind of thing. So we need to be bringing in women from all different areas. And if they're interested in the tech side, then absolutely brilliant. You know, send them off to courses on AI and Copilot and all the Microsoft stuff under the sun. Fantastic, but they don't necessarily have to be. There are so many jobs within the industry that don't necessarily need you to have a technical background.
Absolutely.
I certainly didn't.
Yeah, it's true. And before we move to our last question, is your daughter interested in this industry? Is it something that you passed to her?
Sadly not.
Okay.
I think it's almost one of those things that you don't want to be what your parents are.
Okay.
She's at that stage now, but she is going to be studying psychology, which I actually think would be a really good skill to have in this industry. So I won't give up hope yet. If she goes away to uni and studies, then I think a psychology degree kind of gives her scope to get into anything.
Many opportunities with that. There's so many opportunities open up to go into the tech industry, be it on the human side of it, or even having input on the tech side of it, because we know that there's so much psychology going into the development of the tools that we are now building.
Or you can imagine AI, the psychology of AI, that would be fascinating. But who knows?
Yeah, but if I may squeeze in a question as well, as you were talking about, your daughter, I was thinking, is there something that MSPs as parents can do to encourage their kids more on the path of tech? Is it something that obviously we talk about, how to get girls interested in a career, but now we're talking maybe high school and higher education of a certain age bracket. But is there something that MSPs or the industry can do to look at kids at much earlier age and encourage more of the tech background, the interest in some of these things? Is there something that we can think of generally, not necessarily within the MSP industry even, but as parents?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many things that you can do. So start off really young. So we got the Mighty Girls books, which aren't necessarily IT background books, but they're all about inspiring women in every industry, lots of STEM careers in there. So it's talking to them about that kind of stuff, letting them take apart old equipment. We go into primary schools and secondary schools and take old kit and let them take them apart. And yes, the boys get involved as well, but it's primarily, if I'm there, it's to kind of show girls that we can all do it. And they get really excited by that because it's something hands-on and a bit different. Going in and talking at schools, talking to, you'd be amazed how many schools really want industry input. They want to know what they can teach the kids. They want industry experts to go in and talk to their kids about what the future could look like for them, and talk about apprenticeship programs, all of that kind of stuff. So there's lots that can be done, but it's all about, especially when it's young, when they're really young, it's all about making it really fun. Once they're teenage years, it's all about telling them how much money they can make and how much travel they can do. But when they're really young, it's about how much fun it can be. And I think that's often what's missed out at school.
Yeah, the fun part, but the responsibility that we have in closing this gap in between school and the job market, I think it's an incredible opportunity to push our industry and all the opportunities that it can give.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, in the UK, there's a movement called STEM ambassadors that you can sign up to. You become a STEM ambassador, and you can find lots of opportunities to do get into schools and help and volunteer. So that's a good thing to look at as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And as you were talking also about, how do we then make these jobs interesting and sexy for girls? The one thing that your career, your path is an example is the flexibility. And we touched on, some of the things that as women, we work differently than men. And that's the beauty, I think, of setting up your own business or working for a smaller startup or organization that is more female-led. It's to design our days, our workflows, because we know that the typical work week is designed, or the work month is designed by men for men, because they're pretty much, their hormones, their energies, they're stable day in, day out. They perform very well on a very rigid systematic schedule that doesn't change because they do not fluctuate. We fluctuate throughout months, throughout our years. So is it something that you've seen or you've maybe implemented in your business that really leans into this flexibility of, how do you do your week? How do you do your month? How do you plan projects? How do you structure workload to really tweak the traditional Monday to Friday 9 till 5? Every day is the same day, rather than, well, maybe this week you will be more creative and this week you will be more organized, playing a little bit with the cycle and playing a little bit then with, maybe in your career when you're going into maternity, we will look at different opportunities. So while you're prioritizing childcare, you're not outside of the industry fully, you can be in, because we can still tap into parents and moms while they're prioritizing childcare, but still have them involved on a different basis.
Yeah. I'll start off by saying that I wasn't that kind to myself. I kind of felt, because I was in the male industry, I had to work 100 miles an hour to keep up with my male peers. So when I was building the business, I had 2 very small children, but and to be fair, I was the only person in the business to start with. So I was still building Exchange servers at 3 o'clock in the morning and, then going and breastfeeding and all that kind of stuff. I would not want anybody that works for me going through that. So yeah, I mean, we struggle to hire women like everybody else in the industry, but I think we are known to be an organisation that's incredibly flexible. I think one of the biggest things for me, as my parents were getting older, was that whole sandwich generation where my kids were very small, but my parents were elderly and needing cared for. So I had to balance that, which was very difficult. But by that time, the business was big enough that I was able to do that quite easily. So although we don't have as yet anything specifically written down policy-wise, the team all know that we're completely flexible. If something happens with a child or a parent, everything gets dropped and they just go. And then, we've never had an issue where people are, taking the mickey and just going off. Everybody has respect for each other here, and we work really well together. And if they need time off for whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily need to be a women's issue. It could be all sorts of mental health issues, or the andropause. Nobody talks about the male menopause the same. So all of that kind of stuff, we're very flexible in terms of that.
Yeah, sometimes I think that the topics that more often are connected to women's needs can function as an example for men on how to, take the foot off the gas pedal and just focus on something else, something that is related to your parents or your partner or your kids or your mental health. And we can use that disadvantage, something that the society taught us to consider a disadvantage. We can use it as an example on how to live a more wholehearted life, a more complete life, where we are not just the work that we do, we are the people around us, we are the people that we care for, the people that we love. So maybe we can also give an example to men on how to not just focus on that, because the thing that you mentioned about emulating the way that men work, it's something that a lot of women in male-dominated industry do. We mock the way that other people work, other people do the work, the way that they work, the time and the hours that they put. But this, I think it's great that we can actually talk about the fact that there are other ways to.
Yeah, I definitely think that's shifting. I definitely think it's shifting. I think even just since COVID, I think it's been a very recent change. In that people aren't willing to put up with that kind of toxic workplace anymore. They want to work for caring organizations that will put them and their families and their work-life balance first. And that's all way all business should be. I don't even understand why it's a choice anymore. It should be mandatory.
Yes, it should be normal. It should be the ground.
The new normal.
The new normal. Maybe we're heading that direction, but to thank you for your time. We want to thank you for the opportunity to share your story with us and with our audience, and to know more about your background and everything that you care for and the things that you consider important in your current position. But the last question is more about us in terms of how can we help? What can we do to support the cause that you care for, the good parts of our industry? How can we help dismantle the bad parts that we don't want to see anymore? What can we do to amplify your message and to support you in your path?
I think promote and try and encourage more women role models, especially young women role models. I think until we get more people out there that can bang the drum and say, look, this is a great place to work, and actually getting them out of their comfort zone as well, getting them up speaking and talking about things that are important. Because although I'm now chair of this wonderful group at GTIA, we want to be talking about subjects that are important to all women. We have our own ideas, but we need more ideas. We need to be talking about everything that is important to women in our industry to help us all grow.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being our first guest for our first official episode. Your story is so powerful, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. But how can our listeners find you, where they can find you, where they can find your company, and how they can get in touch with all the things that you do and the opportunities that might rise from this connection?
Yeah, well, join GTIA and come and join in our special interest group, or you can catch up with me on LinkedIn as well. Our website is illuminate-it.co.uk.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We'll make sure to add all the links and all the mentions into the show notes so people can click and find you there. So thank you so much for being here. I wanted to put a message out there also that Wired for Connection is about you, our listeners. So if Amanda's story sparked something in you, if you faced challenges, if you've broken barriers, or simply have a journey that deserves to be heard. And as we said today, anyone has a story, no matter how small, how early on in your career, how big impact you've made, whatever it is, we want to hear from you. So feel free to email us at lenka@tabblog.co.uk, or find us on social media, drop us a message to share a story, or maybe nominate someone, mention someone who you believe should be heard. Because the future of IT is diverse, it's inclusive, and it is wired for connection. So let's make it happen together.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you again, Amanda. And we really appreciate your time and your transparency into sharing your story.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and connect. And until next time, bye.